Hey everybody, welcome to the Download Youth Ministry webcast. This is episode 239. We have a little bit of a historic moment happening in a couple of different ways.
Okay.
First, Doug Fields, Matt McGill, Josh Griffin, and the Queen, Katrina Edwards.
She's back.
We
you
missed
guys are matchers today.
Matchers?
Matcher colors.
Yeah,
Got that right.
we are. Matt and I called each other and said,
Let's wear the same shade.
Yeah.
let's wear that slimming blue.
Let's wear our hair the same way.
Okay,
Totally.
before we get to the big event in your life, we have Chris Davis here.
Oh,
We have
And
all
Chris
the
Davis.
executive producers from the show.
Really, we
No.
do. Anybody who's ever been going back to episode
Yeah.
00?
It's kind
No,
of
no,
a high
no.
pressure
No, he wasn't.
I was the
situation.
executive producer for the first shows.
Okay.
Remember? Shot
Okay.
Through the Heart.
Remember
all
how-
those
I know,
great
no,
music.
there was great
Come
bits.
on.
Have a big
Okay. Chris Davis came in, was the executive producer from
I put that on my bio.
49 to 160 something. Then we got Seth Bartlett.
Seth Bartlett,
You
you
know.
know,
Is it Bartlett or Bartlett?
I don't know.
Sparklet.
It's
I just
Bartlett.
call him Seth.
Hashtag mystery.
And then we have who he's mentoring, Parker.
Whoa.
But we're not really letting Parker step up because he lost an
He screwed up.
episode.
Yeah, he screwed up.
He's just a
Why me?
producer.
I didn't do that.
Hey, you know he's getting grief. We go out to lunch yesterday, and Fadi gives him crap.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he's
he's just following your lead of discouragement. That's
Parker,
all.
I believe in you.
yeah.
That's right.
Oh,
You're a
I
leader.
love my
So
friend
anyway,
Fadi.
Chris Davis,
You're a leader.
we just shot a 5-minute youth ministry with Chris.
Oh,
Talk
fun.
tech stuff.
Cool.
What is
And-
5-minute youth ministry?
It's just something we put on the blog.
Yeah. It's
I
a
mean,
little,
I know what it is. But
every
this is
Thursday,
trying to
5-minute
give
youth
you
ministry fun. We talk
meatball.
about stuff quick. Get one topic, 5 minutes.
5
burst
minutes
of
youth
insight.
ministry.
Burst
That's
of
right.
insight. What is the blog?
Like a video
Is
blog?
it Love God, Love Students?
Yeah, lovegodlovestudents.com or go to Download Youth
I
Ministry.
just go and download youth.
Click blog. Yeah.
It's really easy.
Katie, everybody watching, we missed you last episode.
Thank you.
Jessica replaced you.
So great.
She
She
did.
was
Well,
best.
can never be replaced.
No, she
but
did.
was
She
here.
sat in. She did
She's
it.
the best.
She did a very good job.
did.
You'd have been proud. You were in Africa with a bunch of teenagers. You came back, and yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, mark the date on your calendar. It was yesterday, from whenever you're watching this, that she officially adopted her
Son. Yeah.
third child.
Adopted our second. We have one biological
Right,
daughter.
but this is your
and
third.
he's our third.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Cooper.
If you count them all equally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the third.
Studio audience
Studio
here
audience.
responding well
Yes.
to that
Thank
news.
you, studio audience. Yes. Cooper.
That studio audience is powered by Youth Specialties, our primary sponsor.
As was Katie's
Truly,
adoption.
totally.
Yeah.
Katie's adoption brought to you
Sponsored
by Youth
Yes.
Specialties.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Azusa Pacific University is beginning to save some money for
Full
Cooper.
ride scholarship
For
for
scholarship.
That's right.
Yes.
If
thank
we
you.
are
Good to
still
know.
doing the podcast in
2020.
whenever he is going to college, Azusa
Yeah.
will
Oh,
make some
so
contribution.
Grateful. So grateful.
$4 in your name.
So grateful. So grateful.
So how great is that?
It was great. It was the best day. We've been fostering him we got him at 7 weeks old, so he's turned 3 in January, so we've had him almost 3 years, and it was great. It was the end of a long journey, and God was so faithful in the whole thing, so it was just
3
cool.
years.
Yeah, it was
great.
just great to I think just have closure and
Yeah.
and now he's ours and ours
And your
forever.
husband, who's very male,
The greatest.
very big, he
Such
was
a
a
stud.
high
He
school
is
football
a man's
player
man.
and wrestler, and he watches anything men related. He
Yes.
finally gets his boy.
He does, yes.
Yeah.
He's so excited, and he is, he's a great dad of girls, but he is such a good dad of boys, and he potty trained them while I was in
Wow.
Africa.
Wow. Wow.
So he's
What a
just,
gift.
That is a
no
gift.
kidding.
Seriously,
He's
he
just
is
the greatest.
most perfect.
he's the greatest. He,
is
truly
really
is.
the best.
So, yes, it's so our family is just
There should be a
rejoicing.
reality
It's
show
so
just
fun.
about Ron.
He's a great one.
Dude,
Seriously.
Ron's reality. That would be a great
Yeah.
show.
Well, hey, here, be
It
doing
would
this.
teach
Be
people
sending
too much
in,
stuff.
questions because Kathy Fields is talking about doing a spouses show
Cool.
podcast for
Like
youth
4
ministry
people around the
spouses.
table?
No, just maybe a couple. But I said you ought to have Ron on the show every once in a while
I
too.
agree.
I don't
He's a
know if
great
Ron
one.
would do it. Would Ron do it?
I think if Kathy could ask him direct questions,
Yeah.
he would be awesome.
Yeah.
He wouldn't necessarily jump in,
Yeah.
unless something specific.
Yeah,
but
Ron is mellow.
He's very mellow,
You have to be a little
relaxed.
obnoxious to be at this table.
Yeah, kind
Yeah.
of. You
Yeah.
got to be
I don't know
willing
what
to
you're
like
talking
fight
about.
for it.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Don't
but
wanna,
he
we're not
would
going to
love
point
it.
fingers.
Yeah.
Just,
He would be great though. He's an awesome,
that's awesome.
awesome ministry partner.
Yeah.
So
He's, you know what, when the greatest male that I know just walked in the room, and when he was a little boy, I used to think he loved your husband. Cody just walked in. He loved your husband. I
Yeah.
used to think, if Cody
Cody's
grows
your
up,
son. It's a little
yeah.
insider.
if Cody grows up to be like Ron, I
Yeah.
just remember that because Ron was always so
he
great.
used to call him Juan.
Juan.
Yes.
I'll never forget that. It was so cute.
Juan.
Juan.
Cody.
Really good suit.
This is a question. So congratulations. We rejoice with
Thank
you.
you.
And
Thank
Matt, we weep with you. Sorry.
Yes. Why
Sorry
do
you
we
got
weep with
canned.
you? Oh,
1 year and 3 weeks later.
that's right.
Yeah.
We're celebrating
but we
the
do-
55th week anniversary.
We do have
worry,
special
Matt.
gifts for everybody.
We do?
Yeah, I forgot to do this
We got
on
a
the last
box.
show, and then Jessica was here, and I didn't want to give it
Yeah.
to her.
She doesn't deserve it.
DYM team,
you.
thank you so much for your ministry to those in ministry. You're all a real encouragement. I encourage every pastor in my network to listen to your wisdom, Matt.
Oh.
God bless you and thank you.
It really says that.
Yeah, Aaron Pippin.
Thank you, Aaron.
And he sent us some shirts that, if you hold them up to the light, they don't look like they have cotton in them. But it's his ministry.
You
Well,
probably
look
have
at
to
Phil,
wear an
how thin
undershirt
this is.
under that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is what
so
the,
things don't show
this is what
through.
the hipsters
You know.
wear.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think so. Ask Seth.
Wow, thank you for that gift.
Yeah.
That's
Thanks,
so
man. This is
thoughtful.
true.
Very cool.
Wait.
That's lumberjack.
So anyway,
today.
Those
we'll,
are cool.
I like shirt.
What's
Yeah.
Recharge?
That's great.
Is that his ministry?
I'm guessing that was
Thanks,
just
Aaron.
a nice gift. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool, thank
Dude,
you.
district made. That's pretty good.
James
Recharge.
Gaffaldini writes in from Lake of Ozarks, Missouri.
Recharge.
I'm-
We're not ready to move on from the shirt segment.
Oh, we're not?
No.
Yeah.
Look,
No,
I'm
I
looking
want-
at it. Griff wants to
Take a
look
look.
at
I
Let me
just
take a
wish
look.
Griff would get rid of that shirt.
This Say No to Free Hug shirt
Yeah.
from letgodwork.com. All right, I'll put this one on. I'll put
Kind
this
of
one
a
on.
classic Griff.
It's really thin. There's gonna be if it's kind of cold in here, so I don't know. I'll put it on.
Put it on. You don't want to put it on in front of the camera? Okay.
You look great. What are you talking
Things
about?
just changed in here.
Things.
This
Wait a
is
minute,
from.
keep your pants
Can we
on.
can we move to the segment now?
Yeah, move to the next.
All right.
I give you my permission.
James Gaffaldini from Lake of the Ozarks,
James-
Isn't that a movie
Missouri. I'm planning on doing a series on relationships. And it means bring it in. You got to keep that on. That's fine. That's
looks
fine.
good
That's
on
not
you.
even that bad. I thought it was going to be worse.
Thanks for the shirt, Aaron. you like it looks good on you, and you're turning bright red. Like, oh no, this is not good.
It looks
This is
good.
not.
If
All
I
right.
sit upright.
Here we go. A series on relationships
There you
is
go.
going to mean a purity talk.
Get it out.
What's the best way to come alongside parents when you decide to have that lesson? Worst case scenario I can imagine is not let parents know up front that it's going to happen, then send students home with a lot of questions. Remember, I work with middle school students. So what do you guys suggest to do so that everyone wins?
That's awesome.
So-
well, tonight for our public school system, we are having sex education with my oldest,
Wow.
which for the last month in our house we've been calling it Wiener Night. Well, I mean that's the main topic.
Well,
of
and you
the
do have
evening.
all boys, so that
Yeah,
makes
I'm
sense.
gonna-
boys.
Yeah.
That feels appropriate in a guy's trip, maybe.
Yeah.
Seth
Totally.
is about to fall out of his
He
chair.
not. You got to know, Matt.
Seth's actually trying to attend. because
Matt
he has
even
some
calls it. What do you call the female?
No,
part?
no, this is
over
a
the line?
family show.
No,
iTunes
'cause I'm
has rated our
talking to my
show as
boys.
clean.
I mean, as they're little kids, they're and as they're growing up and stuff, they obviously see one another naked and be naked, and mom. And so I said, yeah, dudes have wieners, girls have girl wieners, and so it's just. I mean, it really no difference between saying the word gonad. I could have just said male gonads, female gonads, but I decided to say wiener instead.
Well, I think you got enough.
You got
enough
the-
from today. We can probably just call it
Yeah.
call the show right here.
I don't think
You
people
got the
find that
title of the
funny.
show.
Right.
You got the title of the show right there.
iTunes explicit rating.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's right. And Chris Davis is going, I can't believe this thing is 239
So
shows.
people
They're
still watch
doing
this.
the same
All right,
thing.
so what do you do? What do you do?
This is like filigree. Filigree? It's just so.
I missed the first part of the question because I was changing, so I really didn't hear the
Relationship
first part.
series.
Purity.
You got to
Purity
let parents know ahead
series.
beforehand. I mean, the school has done that, and which is great. We've all done that, when we're hitting series, and included a line, if you're not comfortable with your kids coming, to this, then have them stay home or whatever. And so informing the parents is, you already said that is a big deal, and that's really
It'd be interesting to even do like a pre-curriculum, or even just say, here's the boundaries of what we're teaching on. We're expecting your students to hear, or your teenagers to hear this from you at home. Here's where we're kind of starting, and here's where we're finishing. Here's what we're going to go after. But just know that this is the sandbox we're going to play in. We're not going to go outside of that. And make sure you don't.
I sent out
Doug has no
my
sandbox, and
outlines
he
last
talks about
time
it.
ahead of
That's true.
time.
Say that again. I'm sorry you were interrupted
okay.
by Matt.
No, for junior high, I will post my outlines ahead of time for what we're going to teach on the weekend, and kind of give parents here's the play-by-play of what exactly we're teaching, and then we've also posted those messages online. So if they didn't want to send their students to service, but maybe they wanted to watch them together, after we taught them, so kind of giving them a couple of options.
That's really good, Kate.
For receiving the information. I know junior high or middle school especially, is a tough age because you have a lot of already not yet, especially parents who are not yet ready to talk about some of this stuff. But I find giving them some encouragement of it's time to start talking about this stuff, even if you feel like you're not ready.
Yep.
Even if you have the conversation and it's not us, at least this is a great time for all of us to broach the topic. So I think in middle school, you have to encourage the parents as much as the students. Our students are excited to come here, but they don't want anybody to know that they're excited to hear, sometimes too. But just trying to post everything ahead of time. So it's like, it's all out on the table. There's no secrets. Even with students, I'm like, here's some of the stuff we're going to talk through, so you can be ready for that. So I think that's good.
Great. You know what he does? It's interesting. I'm not sure we've ever had a question like this. He answers.
His own
he
question.
gives his answers. So
nice.
here's what he's done.
Well, maybe we should have him on the podcast.
I just sent out a parent newsletter by email, which I do every month thanks to DYM. So I'm assuming
cool.
that's the parents'
Nice.
newsletter.
The membership.
Part of our membership. Barker.
Redeemed yourself right there.
To let parents know the exact date the lesson is going to happen, as well as the copy of my main points and the scripture we'll be
great.
looking at.
Look at that.
I'm also considering having a short parent meeting in between Sunday services the week before to let parents hear my heart on the matter.
you go.
Plus the email that I sent out to the parents, I have carbon copied it to the pastor, so there's no surprises.
Wow.
Didn't know that carbon copy was...
CC. He CC'd him on the email.
I also warned them during that parent meeting that I had that the topic was going to come up.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Sounds
like
that's a great job.
yeah.
James
Gaffaldini.
We better
did
do
it.
what
like the,
So like I said, we're done. We're done for that.
That's it. Jim Burns has got some great books on it for every age. I think we talked about
That's
this
true.
within the last couple months or
Yep.
whatever. But
Homeward.com.
Homeward.com, and they've got the Purity Code, which is junior high school kids, which is great. But then they've got other books like children's books, and I think it's great.
He does
I think
a
the
lot of
children's
good
book
stuff.
can be great for some humor bits, but
Yeah.
But I think
Boy wiener, girl wiener stuff.
totally girl wieners, boy wieners,
Yeah.
it all works out.
That's all his
Yeah.
terminology.
Hey,
That's
we're
it.
talking
Do
about
you-
the.
that's his
Do you think
terminology.
our sponsors, Youth Ministry 360, has anything that could be used?
I'm sure they do. Go to youthministry360.com and find out.
Yeah, Leader Tracks probably doesn't.
No.
But they have a lot of stuff on developing leaders, and they're giving 17% off if you use the code DYM.
That's a
That's
great
cool.
deal.
So you go to
17%
leadertracks.org.
off.
I
and
bet if you
then-
called them and
Interesting
asked them to just
percentage.
bump
Well,
it up to 20%.
Well, they did Youth Ministry Garage in the old days. It was
got you.
15%, so they're
Oh,
changing
they
it
upped it.
to now 17%.
I like that.
I didn't go for 20.
Can I just say one thing
Yeah.
more about that? I think in this area of purity, though, we have to bring a little bit of normalcy to this topic. So when we are teaching it, I don't think we need to be sounding the alarm and oh my gosh, we're gonna talk about sex.
Yeah.
I think we as youth pastors need to talk about it a little bit more often and more frequent, and
Yep, yep.
it not be such an alarming topic to
This
talk
is
about.
my one chance all
Totally.
year to make sure
So
they're
I don't know if
pure.
there's
Yeah.
a way to just continue to have that conversation throughout the year. I've kind of been thinking about this a little bit more lately in our ministry of just
I
how do
wonder if it
we-
has anything to do with you being a mom of a junior
totally,
higher.
totally, and it's something that it's just an ongoing conversation.
Isn't it interesting?
And so it's just one of those things where it doesn't freak me out.
Right.
And I don't want other parents to be freaked out. I just want to figure out
Yeah.
this is a normal topic that all of our students are talking about in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And so how do we kind of not
I
make it
wonder.
so alarming?
I love your point. I think it's an excellent point. I wonder if you would have said the same thing 5 years ago.
I don't know. Probably not.
Kathy used to say that, when Tori came into high school,
Yeah.
she'd say, "How come every talk turns into sex and dating?" I mean, your topic was sanctification, and you turned it into a sex
Well
talk.
said,
I'm
we're
like,
talking about sex.
well, because my daughter's in. She was sitting next to that guy. That's why. It just felt like
Cornball over there.
Yeah, you as a
Definitely.
parent, all of a sudden you go, oh wait, this is a little more natural to talk
For
about,
sure.
and not as alarming. So that's
Yeah.
really good. That's really good.
Hey, talking about the DYM membership, just wanted to throw this one out there as well.
What was the transition?
It was a while ago.
Oh, okay.
No, because he said he used the parent newsletter.
Yeah, parent newsletter. So I stole this out of the emails. It says this, hey, this is Jessica Elizabeth. I'm just hosting, in case you guys are wondering what I'm doing right now.
Oh, okay.
Hosting. So, Jessica Elizabeth Aldabada, whatever. Assistant youth pastor at Mission Valley Christian Fellowship here in San Diego.
She won the iPad.
She won the iPad Mini.
and her
not
live
too long
show
ago,
at Youth Specialties at
Says-
the convention.
Yeah. Doug, I wanted to thank you for being a special guest speaker at our youth ministry leadership meeting last night. Wait, what's that you say you don't remember coming to San Diego?
I don't.
Well, take a closer look. And then it's got a picture of you. Here's her volunteers around these tables. And then down at the end on this computer screen is you. Here's a close-up. Stick a close-up too. Of you on video training their volunteers.
That's great.
Those
I know
are your
that face.
handbooks.
Yeah, I know that guy. I know that gesture. But anyhow, it's cool. It says, okay, so you weren't actually there, but as any good assistant to and faithful DYM member would do, I passed on one of the volunteer training videos that comes along for the membership. We are encouraged, reminded about life-changing impact. Thank you, Katie, Josh, Matt, Doug. I can't say it enough.
That's fun.
I just thought that was a
That's
cool
fun.
note. that-
Somebody tweeted one the other day about Doug Fields is training my youth team, and he put a picture on there.
Yeah.
So it was an Instagram deal, and I went, "That's cool." That I don't even remember where it
So
was,
fun.
but there was
Yeah.
training happening. It's
I
a
love
10-minute video. It's simple, good conversation.
One
starter.
free every month as part of the
Nice,
membership.
this youth room.
I
You
know.
think that's a youth room?
I think they had dinner,
I want to live in
dinner
that.
and a video,
Dinner and a movie.
dinner and a movie with Doug Fields.
Sounds like a great training. Sounds like a great night.
Just enough youth ministry so you don't feel guilty for this thing.
Matt, this is from Zach Ray. Okay,
Awesome.
here we go.
Here we go.
What can we do to teach students to love God? I've taught about God. I've taught about the love of God. But how can I teach them to have actual affection for God?
Okay, Matt, ready, begin. Seems like
Why
a simple
is
one.
this directed towards me?
I was trying to get you to quiet up.
What? I have not been interrupted. I have been
All right,
very.
here we go. Focus.
I'm excited
Focus.
about your answer.
I mean, it's a really broad question. I mean, what does it mean to love God? I mean, I think that teaching's probably the third thing that you do. I mean, I think that you demonstrating your own faith in a way that's authentic, that's number one. I think having meaningful relationships with students is another way. I mean, that's where you're talking and you get to know, and you're demonstrating God's love that way. But I mean, I think that those two things is that's what gives you credibility for what you teach. And I think as far as teaching, I mean, I think this is a tough thing. I mean, I think that in the sense it's basically like how do you disciple somebody? I mean, it's a huge open. I mean, it would be so great to know like all the things that are already going on in your ministry to say, well, hey, this is great. Here's a few ideas that you can consider or whatever. So open-ended, I mean, for me, I think you need to have a picture of spiritual growth that in your own head, what does it mean to love Jesus? And obviously this should be based on scripture, but it should also be personal to you. Like, what are your convictions? What are your passions? If you were to answer the question, this is what I love most about following Jesus, that answer will fuel the way that you, what you're going to pass on to others. And I think answering that question also doesn't just fuel, but it also lets you know if you can stop and pause and you're talking to other people and you're in community. It also let you know what your blind spots are when it comes to your spirituality, or because every person's faith can't be carbon copied. And so the way that you do things, the way that you relate to God, the way that yes, there are some things that some beliefs that ought to be common to everybody, and there are some practices that are common to everybody, and that's totally true and totally great. But at the same time, what you're passionate about is not necessarily what other people are going to be passionate about. And so how you can help people to love God on their own terms and not just yours, to me, that's a good discernment. That's a discernment that the best disciplers in my life, the best mentors I've had, have been able to allow for that kind of freedom. So it's a lot. I mean, this is, to me, I feel like we could spend, a whole year's worth of podcasts talking about discipling students and helping people, take another step. So,
well, you can hear kind of a little bit in, I've taught about God, I've taught about the love of God, but how can I teach? I mean, you can kind of hear heart and passion, like I want them to get it. And sometimes when we want a kid to get something, we immediately default to teaching. That's why I like the fact that you said maybe that's the third thing. But in your teaching opportunities, I think when you spend time talking more about the love of God for them, I'm doing something right now in Ephesians 5:1, and it says, as dearly loved children.
yeah.
And I've been kind of focusing on those words that if you walk out knowing that you're dearly loved, you're able to dearly love. If you walk out knowing that you're deeply loved, you're able to deeply love. Painting the picture that for kids that Jesus loves you so much that we don't tie the love of God to their behaviors. And I think that's typically what we do is we teach kids how to behave Christianly, and they then when they don't, they think, oh, maybe God doesn't love me, or they begin to fake it and wear a mask, that type of thing. But really, regardless of how you live your life, you are dearly loved.
I mean, it's something that you prayed a lot when we were in high school, or when I was in high school, and we'd end a message, or it'd be the end of a youth group night or something like that. I mean, you'd pray, but you always, and I say always, most of the time, ended it with "Thank you, God, so much that you love us." And so that to me has become that's something that I pray all the time too. I mean, I do the same thing. It's like, thank you that it's unconditional and unending and eternal, and there's nothing we can do. I mean, so for me, like, even as we're together in whatever youth group setting, if it's a lot of people or if it's just 5 in a small group or whatever, like, to me, I pray it, and which sounds like a weird, like, oh, okay, so pray about God's love is lame to talk about. I mean, even just saying these words, you can feel just how trite it sounds. But for me, I mean, it's just one of those things where I've had students come back a couple of years later and say, man, I really...
Yeah, well, look at what you're
those
doing.
Words,
you're coming back 26 years later and saying, hey, what I don't remember your messages, Doug, but I do remember how, but the repetition of every week, closing in prayer, reminding people that they are dearly and deeply loved by God is part of it.
Well, I would say get students serving, because when they start serving, even if it's just for themselves or to check off a high school requirement to graduate or whatever, I think oftentimes through that they will learn to love God as well. And sometimes seeing life change firsthand, like if they bring a friend and then they see their friend who's totally heading down the world's way, and all of a sudden their life is transformed by Jesus, heading this way. I think that can be a powerful way to move them into a deeper relationship with Jesus, because they're like, whoa, I was raised with this stuff. It's just no big deal to me. But my friend, their whole life is different. This God, I love God. Look what he did. So I think sometimes serving can help introduce that to them. And I think evangelism, there's a direct correlation there as well.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I think you gotta realize, I know you're about to transition, I just want to say the one thing, is that you can't feel the pressure that you, and even to say this out loud, no one would ever say this out loud, but a lot of people feel this. You can't make somebody else love God. You got to take that pressure off, where somebody else's response to God, it's not dependent on you. It's dependent on God working, but it's also dependent on their ability to choose.
Yeah, but as with a shepherd's heart, which we have as leaders of
but you got to take
flock.
The pressure off.
Yeah, but still, a shepherd's heart is, I want my sheep to fall in the way of the Savior.
And that is awesome. That is the maintaining the balance in the right way. The Messiah complex, the struggling with guilt, that's when you take it too far. That's my point.
Great. All right, we ready to transition to another
heavy one?
No, I don't know if it's a heavy one or not.
Yeah.
They're all heavy. Everything's heavy.
Hey,
I don't know. With guns like these and this super tight shirt, I don't know.
You're looking good. I feel bad for the people listening that don't get it.
Can't see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel bad for the people that are watching.
There was a screenshot that I sent to Matt the other day that I thought was just a great screenshot.
What was it?
It was us around the podcast.
Yeah, it just made me think that maybe I should be on the side of the screen. I should be.
Yeah, it
facing
wasn't
Yeah.
flattering of Matt.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I just was kind of back like this in all my glory. It's beautiful.
And there was a lot of glory.
So,
to go
okay,
around.
so let's pause for a
Glory.
second and just
All
take a
right.
vote. We were talking about the people who are DYM members.
Let's you and I switch.
No. People who are DYM
right.
members, like that have been yearly,
Yeah.
like for them when they go to year 2, that we give a Matt McGill sports instructional calendar.
Love it.
Okay,
Love
calendar.
it. Talk about
And-
majestic.
Yeah, and so don't you think, Katie, that
would
just
love one.
photograph and Matt made a comment like, "Oh, that would really help me get a senior pastor job."
Yeah, seriously.
Of course
I think
it would.
I think it's a
Do you
hands
want
up,
to
who
switch
thinks
places
that-
with me?
No, I'm fine. Thank you for the offer.
As long as there's a lot of
okay,
Spanx,
but quickly
I'm in.
tell the story of when you were meeting with the publishers. Don't you think that's funny? No.
I'm drawn.
And you said, "Hey, my buddy Matt is going to help write this," and it was this old school guy, and you're like, "Hey, I'm working on these 2 books. My buddy Matt's going to help with this," and then the other guy searches the web for Matt McGill, and immediately
Oh,
what
no.
shows up is a picture. He takes my Facebook something, and it's a picture of me coming back from junior high camp a couple years ago, and they have a huge mud pit, and it's awesome. It's actually really cool.
wow.
This camp. You know, these fire hoses and mud everywhere.
Yeah, and your
Like games.
skin looks fabulous.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just
Exfoliated.
me without any shirt on, but completely covered in mud, like standing in my, And the guy's like, "So that's the person you have helping write this?" Didn't help my credibility too
No,
much.
sure.
That's right. I forgot about
So
that.
the
Well,
what I hear you saying is the calendar's a go.
absolutely. It's limited edition.
It's already out there, really. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just about compiling.
Yeah,
at
and
this
here's the
point.
deal. Don't you think that if a church wanted you to be a senior pastor, that they want you for who you are? You don't have to hide who you are.
Hide behind clothes.
Hide behind dignity.
Self-respect.
All right.
Whatever.
We could do it. I don't care.
All right.
I mean,
Those images are
Good.
beloved.
Done.
Beloved.
It's recording. Hopefully it's recording. So hopefully we have audio
Did you feel like
recording
you
that
needed
too,
to
partner.
maneuver me
No,
into
no,
that?
not at all, not at all.
Yeah,
But
you
here's
did.
here. I'm already thinking.
Look.
I'm already
That
thinking
was a
like
total maneuver. For
where I think the
I
three
would
of
do
us.
it.
I think the 3 of us could be in the background somehow. Like
In one of the shots.
no,
I agree.
like in every shot, we're just like we're fans in the
Passersby.
stands, or
Yeah, we're
you know,
cheering.
we're
Yeah.
doing something.
Yeah.
We're but hidden, tiny, like find Katie.
Yeah, totally.
I like
But it is you are the star of that
it.
calendar.
Star of that show.
Now you got to do it
That's
because
what
I
I'm
really
looking
want to
for,
be on a
guys.
calendar.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Dave Campbell from
Swimsuit
Oak Hills Baptist
edition.
Church in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Wait, are we thinking about changing up the seats for real?
No.
Oh, okay. South Dakota. Here we go.
He says, I'm in my 6th year full-time junior high and high school ministry, a church about 400. I have an amazing volunteer staff of 18 people who I absolutely love. Every year about this time, I feel like my wife and I have the same conversation, and often it's filled with some trepidation with a dollop of tension.
Wow.
Here it is.
Good vocab.
Like Robert
Wow.
Frost.
You could
Yeah.
co-write Duck's next book instead of Matt.
It's
the road not taken right there.
it's the summer calendar conversation.
That was fun.
We talk about what the ministry and family plans are for the summer, how many weeks is okay for me to be away, etc. I sit down and type up a proposal that highlights some of the ministry obligations and plans from March to August, and we talk through them. We throw some out, we laugh about some, and some get pushed to a later date. I've learned that I often put her in a tough situation of being the one with veto power on a youth ministry event.
Of what?
Tension.
Great.
I let her decide if an event stays or goes, and I also give her the power to let me know how many weeks away from the family are doable for our current season of life and family.
Sounds like a lot of veto power there.
She told me recently over supper that this puts her in a tough position because she loves me and
Yeah,
sees how the
yeah.
Lord is at work in my ministry, so she wants to say yes. So she ends up saying yes, and then the event comes up and she's bummed that she's agreed to it in the first place.
Right.
So here's my question. Can you all talk about some best practices for managing the tension between the call to ministry and the call to family, especially during the summer months? I feel like the school year we've got a rhythm, but in the summer it feels like it gets out of control. I either have a senior pastor and parents who are upset, or I have a family who is hurt because I'm away not giving to them.
That's
Well, those people are going to leave your church anyhow.
Those are two different issues, in my opinion. The whole managing the senior pastor and the people that are hurt, that is I can see that they're connected, but that is a separate thing, and I don't.
Well, why is
it's just
that
that tension.
separate?
Because you can't do awesome ministry because you have some morons putting pressure on your life. I mean, that's not a way to make ministry decisions. I don't think.
Okay, so if the pastor says, I want you to have a junior high camp, a high school camp, a leadership camp, a this camp.
Right. Okay. So that's why I think it's a separate issue. I think the first issue between you and your wife, like just because you give veto power, there still needs to be relationship, and there still needs to be conversation, and there still needs to be the ability to say, like, okay, if you veto this, like, you're the wife. I'm just putting
thank you. That's interesting.
Right. No, you're just right in front of me.
It's based on your shirt.
I guess it makes sense.
No, but I mean,
I'm not
for you to
wearing a
say,
bra,
hey,
just so you
you
know.
have veto power, but then in your own heart to say, I'm not going to be bitter, I'm not going to make jokes, I'm not going to hold it against you, I'm not. I mean, so there's the issue between you and your wife, or you and your spouse. Like, there has to be open dialogue. There has to be constant watching of your own heart. There has to be freedom, like when they have second guess, like, oh, I can't believe. No, it's great. It's okay. This is what, there's got to be an ongoing thing other than just an agreement of, oh, veto power, let's talk about it once and then we're done. That's where I think that's one issue. And I think the other issue is, okay, if you've got some parents, well, if they're crazy, that's not who you work for, is the parents. And I understand responding to need and
Okay,
stuff
well, let's
like
deal with
that.
let's deal with the issue related to just the spouse thing.
So that's why I see these two things.
Great.
I calendar a little bit backwards. I calendar with my wife first, then calendar the summer, and then go back to my wife. So I think that's a really strong, very practical best practice. So, for example, on Wednesday this coming week, we're going to do our summer planning. We haven't done it yet. Kind of waited a little longer this year. It's the end of February right now, because we wanted to just plan a little closer so we don't lose the momentum and ideas and excitement of summer. So rather than plan too far ahead, we're a couple months
so you
out.
missed the best prices of studentleadershipconference.com.
Exactly, but we're okay with that because we wanted
need a
to,
little ding for shameless pug.
We should have a little
need
ping.
or a
Yeah.
pug. Your dog, a shameless pug.
So insider, but funny.
Does he have a pug?
I don't know he has some kind of dog that he's madly
has
in
a
love
Yeah,
with.
but nobody knows who he is, so it's really inside.
Oh, that was
Yeah,
it. I thought the pug was.
Oh, pug's funny. Anyhow, so start with our family calendar and then take that into summer planning. And then go back to my wife and say, hey, here's where we landed. Do we feel good about it? Okay, this is what it is. It's set in stone.
Yeah.
Now, that's where we begin. I think that's a very good preventative, proactive measure to help ease the tension and whatever dollops are happening.
Yes.
Then what I like to do, too, is in the middle of summer, when I feel the tension of my wife going, man, I did not realize this week was going to be so nuts. I sure wish you were home on Wednesday night instead of at midweek Bible study.
Right.
I will not necessarily plan, but be okay with a couple of
Fudge factors.
Yeah, I will not go to midweek, and I'll call up a couple volunteers, call up a team member, whatever, and say, I just can't make it tonight. Can you guys handle it without me? Now, obviously, you need to have some amount of trust and grace in there to make that happen.
Yeah.
But also
That's
those
ongoing. You gotta have ongoing conversation.
You have ongoing conversations and amendments that might inconvenience someone else to convenience my family, and I'm okay with that. So it's not planned, but an absence on occasion is good for everybody. It's good for your volunteers, good for your team, it's good for students. It's really good for
Okay,
your
but
family.
he also talks about his wife says, yeah, you can do it, and then she feels like, oh, he is so used by God, and then feels guilty, 8 months later that he's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that I would put my husband in that position. I think we do ministry together, but I also think it's okay for there to be times where I come to him and say, this is what is happening right now. Let's navigate this as a family. So I think putting her in that position, I think, hurts you both a little bit, because you're just vulnerable to each other in that role, and it's hard to kind of you know, you want to say yes to each other. You want to be supportive and have that illusion of always being supportive, but there's times where you don't want to be, and that's okay too. That's human. But I would find someone in ministry, whether that's your volunteers, to maybe do some planning with and talk about events and things like that. And then, you know, kind of go to her with, here's some things that we're deciding on, you know, how, you know, what are some of your thoughts at this point? I don't know that I would put her in the front end of the process, because I just feel like that's tough for both of you, you know?
Well,
So
the
his
irony
front
of
end,
the
let me just clarify though, because
okay, go.
can I?
Yeah.
My front end is family first.
Yes.
Then we
your
go to
front end is
youth
not,
communication.
hey, what do you think about the youth ministry calendar? It's what do you
Exactly.
think about the family
Let's
calendar?
plan family.
And
Then
I'm
we'll go
just-
youth ministry. Then we'll put them together.
But that's not what you're talking about. You're
Well,
talking
I just
about
think I'm
ministry.
talking more about the role that he's putting her in as vetoer. You know, I just
Yes.
think that's a tough
Yeah.
role
Right.
to put
It's a
yourself
no-win.
in.
It's a
But
no-win.
I put Kathy, and Kathy just ironically walked in the door, and we were talking about this.
In God's economy, there's no irony.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Just enough theology so you don't feel guilty for listening. But I, you know, we've talked about this for years, that I do give her veto power of the calendar. But for us with summer, because similar to Ron doesn't work in the summer because he's a teacher.
Yeah.
You know, Kathy didn't work in the summer, and we would just take, you know, I mean, I've got a 22-year-old son who is a great kid because he grew up in our youth. I mean, that when we talked about earlier,
some
him calling
freedoms
him
there.
Juan, you
Yeah.
know, he called him Juan at summer camp, and so
Totally.
we involved our family a lot
Right.
in camp. So our kids grew up with all of that, where that was a, you know, I look at who they are today. It's all these lives that we're just pouring into them at different stages of their life. So we kind of, when he talks about best practices, we made summer family times.
Yeah.
Sure, totally.
You know, so even midweek type stuff, you know, our kids came to midweek and would help, you know, run the games or be at a station or, you know, something.
But you also spent time with just family. It wasn't your family. All your family time was ministry time.
Right. Right.
I think there's a lot of there's just this ebb and flow of energy and stuff. Like, I think for us, I do 6 weeks of summer, even though our summer here is 11 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, for those 6 weeks, we run hard. We
Yep.
plan everything in that 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I tell parents, these are the 6 weeks we're doing junior high stuff, and it's got events and summer camp and all sorts of cool stuff. And then after that's over, I take 3 weeks off. The team that I work with, the volunteers, take that part of the summer off. Basically, so there's a time to also have kind of this freedom and energy where there isn't a whole lot of ministry happening. And I don't apologize to parents for that, because I'm like, hey, we've got 6 weeks of great stuff for your kids to be involved with, and then I'm telling you here, there's 4 weeks for you guys to plan vacation and have great family time, and there's no apologies for that, because there's enough happening here where we're having a great summer with students, but then there's also great family time too. So I think it's just kind of finding that great balance where maybe you are running hard for a few weeks. Ron understands that.
Yeah.
He's also a part of some stuff, which is super cool. He loves being part of camp and things like that as a dad. So I don't know. I think it's just kind of finding that rhythm.
Yeah.
Well, and it's all. I mean, it depends on who you're married to and what works. I mean, I don't think
For
there's
sure.
there's not a
There's-
one
Yeah.
size fits
Yeah.
all. I mean, ours.
Especially with different churches, because
Right.
expectations and all that kind of stuff getting them.
Yeah.
Well, and the one thing we
pastors.
all four of us have in common is our spouses are pretty laid back.
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally.
they're not, they're not hard drivers,
Yeah.
pushing. But
Right.
part of the deal with the veto power is, or, whether it's power or not, it's just that the awareness is that for me, when Kathy would say yes to something, it was, there are going to be times, okay, then 8 months, 6 months, whenever it is that I'm away, she signed off on that.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's easy that I'm away during that
Sure.
time, but I'm not catching her off guard, and we made that
Right.
decision as a team for our family. What she would bring for me is the idea of all the other things that were happening in the family calendar
Totally.
that I
Right.
didn't tend to pay attention to. I tend to pay attention
Yeah.
just to the youth ministry calendar. But what about these people that are coming in and staying at our house, and that's going to create this, and help us think through that. But if I would say to Dave, our buddy here who wrote in, if your wife says yes to something and then feels guilty about it later, that is less of a youth ministry issue and more of a marriage communication
Right.
issue that needs to be, talked about and dealt with. One of the things that I'm concerning here is she wants to support everything because she sees how the Lord is at work in my ministry.
Yeah.
Pause.
Scratch that.
Yeah, pause.
Just delete that from thought.
Well, I mean, there is that piece that says, I don't want to get in the way. I mean, there is a little codependency in there. I don't want to get in the way because that is, he's so effective or she's so effective at what they're doing. But, that's part of partnership and teamwork. No, you need to get in the way of that because, if we can be effective in 50 hours a week, and if I can be effective in 100 hours.
God's also called your husband to be effective in your marriage and in your family.
That's exactly
so,
right.
So there's the scales that you have to be balancing, and you have to be okay with, and that's where I think that the understanding individually what works is really important. The veto thing, the front ending with the calendar, that might not be a great way to do it. I mean, for me, she is totally laid back. She is not a huge fan of finding out 24 hours in advance, and so for me, the last minute stuff, I mean, if it's a big deal and there's, something has to happen, crisis in the ministry, yeah, she gets it. But if it's camp or if it's Bible study or whatever, she needs to know beforehand. And so that's the thing that for me, that's the part that really causes a lot of tension. If I'm last minute, if I'm not planned.
Yeah. Well, what he was asking for is best practices. We all gave our best practices. That none of them are going to be the same. Katie's going to chime in because she is the mom of a third child officially, and so you get the last word.
Thank you.
We're actually going to dedicate this show to Cooper. Because Azusa Pacific University, one of our sponsors,
did you guys hear?
Is going to help
donate $4.
No, I don't know what role they're going to play, but APU is going to play a role in sending Cooper to college.
I've got one right here you can have.
No, I was just going to say ongoing communication, because I think sometimes we plan 6 months out. Like, we're talking about summer now as a family, but summer is not a reality for us right now. And so for me, because I have the mom calendar and I have the ministry calendar in my head, my husband isn't balancing that for us. So every Monday we're sitting down.
You can change everything with Ron
talking
last
about
minute, it'd be okay.
Every Monday though we sit down and we talk about our week and just time and what does our time look like and what nights are we, all of those things. That's like all throughout the year. So I think sometimes we have these big conversations with the big planning, but really, to me, the week by week is where we're kind of finding that balance.
That's really good. And I'd like to replace Josh's moniker that he's the hardest working youth worker in the country.
I agree.
I think you need that because
raise your hand.
Stop.
Yeah.
Winner. Right
Stop.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Repeat after me.
Champion.
I have great people. I have a great village.
All right, this was episode 239,
This is it,
the
right
special Cooper edition, the Cooper Edwards
Thank you.
official. Chris Davis, back from the dead.
Hello,
We're glad to have you in the studios
The three producers.
of DYM. Fadi, who has financed this fine studio, lets us
thank you.
be here. If you
Blessings.
saw how nice he looked right now,
He
suit,
does look
tie, little
sharp.
button,
He always
always
wears
has a
a suit.
button
A
right
little
here.
lapel pin.
Yeah, that is it. And Matt.
Thank you.
And Matt.
But
Bye, everybody. See
prepare
you next
yourself for the Matt McGill Sports Instructional Calendar coming soon.
Coming at Christmas.
Bye.